Hello, my dear students. Today we are going to see about the role of physiotherapy in space. Here we'll discuss physiotherapy for astronauts. Synopsis. Initially, we'll see about the introduction, space, astronauts, and astronomy, the effect of space flight in humans, physiological changes that occur in each system, role of physiotherapy, the research evidences of physiotherapy for space, and conclusions. So before moving into the topic, I just want to clear those brains which thinks astronaut training is too much for physios. Why they think so is because the world already faces hunger, poverty and global warming, and humans already faces novel diseases, trauma and disasters. And some things physios are already busy with their ill patients, and astronomy isn't that much important for physios. Let me explain the first two questions. Whenever a natural disaster occurs, it will result in hunger and poverty. Then the researchers will search for the causes, and they will find the changes in geographical structure of the earth caused the natural disaster. There comes the discoveries of astronomy. So whenever the discoveries of astronomy is to be effective, the astronaut must be healthy. So the astronaut's health is very much concerned, and here comes the role of physiotherapy. And those who think physios are busy with their ill patients, let me tell them physiotherapy includes prevention of injury, promotion of health, fitness, and rehabilitation of humans. Astronauts are not superheroes, they are humans too, so it's our duty to treat them. And astronomy isn't that much important for physio. For them, astronomy made our day to day life easier with applications such as personal computers, communication satellites, mobile phones, GPS, solar panels, magnetic resonance imaging scanners, medical imaging, and wireless internet. Astronomy helped us a lot, so it's a kind of payback by taking care of the astronauts. Hope you all got an idea about what the essential of physiotherapy in astronomy and space. Let us move to the introduction. Throughout history, humans used astronomy to navigate oceans, to decide when to plant crops, and to answer questions of where we came from and how we got here. The astronomy helped us to study the vast structure of planets, Earth's structure, and the nature of the cyclones occurring in the structure of the Earth, and more detailed images of the cyclones and natural disaster that occurs. Astronomy has always had a significant impact on our world's view. Now, as our understanding of the world progresses, we find ourselves and our view of the world even more enwritten with the stars. Currently, more than thousands of satellites are revolving around the Earth and monitoring the movements and global positioning of the Earth and its climatic changes. With astronauts and cosmonauts spending ever longer periods in space, despite their efforts to do modified exercises, muscles still atrophy and bones still become weaker than before, due to not having the constant pull of gravity on their body which they had on the earth. Physiotherapy is defined as a system of medicine that includes examination, diagnosis, treatment, advice, and instruction to any person with movement dysfunction, bodily malfunction, disorder, disability, disease, and mental conditions using exercises. Although we achieved many in neurological, musculoskeletal, cardiopulmonary, sports, geriatrics, oncology, and pediatric rehab, our role in space research is still unwitnessed. The definition of space is an empty, blank, or available area. Outer space begins above 100 km above the Earth's surface, which is called as Kármán line. The major differences between the environment on the Earth and that of the outer space were atmosphere, radiation, and microgravity. Let us discuss about these three. Atmosphere. The atmosphere of the Earth is composed of a very specific mixture of gases, which includes 78% of nitrogen, 21% of oxygen, and 1% of other gases, which includes very small amount of gases such as argon, carbon dioxide, water vapor, neon, helium, krypton, xenon, hydrogen, and methane. This pressure is important because it is what pushes the air in and out of the human lungs, and astronauts could not breathe without this constant pressure. Another problem caused by the lack of atmosphere is temperature extremes. In direct sunlight, space can reach temperatures of 150 degrees Celsius, while in shadows they can be as low as minus 270 degrees Celsius. These temperatures far exceed the typical human body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius and causes ill effects. Second, radiation. The solar flares are continuously blasting energetic radiation into the space. Radiation is cumulative and the amount of energy absorbed in the body is measured in radiation absorbed dose RAD. This collective amount of radiation can cause tissue damage, loss of fertility, thickening of lens, induction of cancer, and even death. And the last, gravity, which Newton found with an apple. Gravity is a dominant force on the earth that pulls everything to the surface, and each planet has a different gravitational force. For example, if a person's average weight on earth is considered to be 75 kg, he can be as much as low like 28.4 kgs in Mercury and Mars, whereas his weight can be as much high as 189.8 kilograms in Jupiter. This is based on the gravitational force of each planet. On Earth, we must constantly use certain muscles to support ourselves against the force of gravity. These are called as anti-gravity muscles, which includes gastrocnemius, quadriceps, and muscles of the back and neck. Because astronauts work in a weightless environment, very little muscle contraction is needed to support their bodies or move around. Because of this phenomena, they'll float in space. Body needs, primarily, our body needs are very basic yet essential for survival, which is air, water, food, shelter. We all know how these things are provided on Earth. But are these things available in space? No, not in the same way. If we are in space, we lose consciousness due to the lack of oxygen. The absence of air pressure would cause blood and other body fluids to boil, and the tissues or internal organs would expand and finally, ultimately freeze. We also be exposed to the extreme temperatures, radiations from the sun, and micrometeoroids that could hit and severely injure our skin. A professional space traveler is called as astronaut. Astronauts wear vacuum sealed suit with oxygen supply, otherwise they would simply die if they wore normal earth clothing. Engineers design spacecraft and spacesuits which will provide all the necessary elements to keep them alive and protect from the space environment, maintain their health status as much as possible. So with the help of these spacecrafts, astronauts can get into the space. This space flight can be categorized into two, like short space flight and long space flight. The short space flight is a flight of 1 to 14 days, and long space flight is considered to be more than 2 weeks. This travel from gravity to microgravity and back to gravity has some major effects on the human body. This force of gravity has major influence on musculoskeletal, neurovestibular, cardiovascular, and pulmonary system. Spaceflight and exposure to microgravity have widening effects on many systems of the human body, including deconditioning of the physiological systems, suppression of immune function, imbalance of bone metabolism, and adjustment of circadian rhythm. Astronauts are more susceptible to decompression sickness, barotrauma, loss of eyesight, orthostatic intolerance, sleep disturbances, Alzheimer's disease, and radiation injury. Let us see the physiological changes that occur in each system of the body. Human body mainly consists of 13 major systems, which is cardiovascular system, digestive system, excretory system, endocrine system, immune system and lymphatic system, muscular system, nervous system, renal system or urinary system, reproductive system, respiratory system, skeletal system, integumentary or exocrine system. In digestive system, the effect of microgravity occurs in each segment like mouth, stomach, intestinal tract, liver and pancreas. In mouth, impaired mobility of chewing and swallowing will be there and disorganized secretory functions will be there. In stomach, altered evacuation function, impaired mucosal barrier function, disordered disordered digestion ability and hemodynamics, decreased barrier function, altered metabolic capacity, increased risk of portal endotoxemia, and fluctuated blood glucose and insulin levels. In cardiovascular system, blood is normally pulled towards our feet by gravity, but in space, the blood and fluid is pulled towards the thoracocephalic region, giving astronauts puffy faces. The loss of blood volume combined with atrophy of the heart and blood vessels that can occur in space reduces the ability to regulate a drop in blood pressure. This causes arterial stiffening in space and on Earth, often linked to the increased blood pressure and elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. In skeletal system, bone and muscle will decrease in size and strength. Muscles and bones become weak, increased bone resorption occurs, and reduced bone formation occurs, leading to osteoporosis. Astronauts lose an average of 1% of their bone density per month in space. This is called as spaceflight osteopenia. And some astronauts are looking taller in space because the vertebra expands due to microgravity. The spine elongates up to 3% while humans travel in space. Nervous system. Spaceflight may harm the brain and accelerate the onset of Alzheimer's disease, and in this low gravity of space, the information received from the vestibular organs changes, causing space sickness. In muscular systems, muscles aren't really needed to be hold up the body. Over time, they become very weak and deteriorate. Over time, they become very weak. The disuse of weight-bearing structures, causing muscle atrophy and bone demineralization, and the bones become weak and brittle. An excretory system, the formation of urinary calculi, infections, retention, waste management, and reproductive problems will occur. In reproductive system, it disrupts the spermatogenesis and testicular testosterone synthesis in rodents, whereas the male reproductive organ seems to adapt to the exposure to moderate hypergravity. In endocrine system, altered calcium metabolism and altered level calciotrophic hormones, plasma growth hormone, and TSH levels decreased after long space flights more than 14 days, while prolactin in the plasma increased after short flights. In immune system, progression of immunological conditions such as allergy and autoimmunity were reported. In respiratory system, both ventilation and perfusion are more uniform in spaceflight. Gas exchange is seemingly no more efficient than on Earth. Despite the changes in the lung function, when gravity is removed, the lung continues to function well in weightlessness environment. On Earth, each time we move, gravity provides resistance to the muscles and bones of our body. Our body stays strong enough to support our own weight. In microgravity, however, bones and muscles no longer have to support the weight of an astronaut's body. The cardiovascular system becomes lazy because the heart doesn't have to work as hard as it does on Earth to counteract gravity and pump up the blood to the heart. That means that without exercise, the astronauts' bones would be more fragile and their muscles gets more weaker after they spend some time in space. If astronauts didn't do exercise while they were in space, their bodies would experience major loss in muscle mass, bone density, and cardiovascular health. This video is from NASA's restored video where they asked American astronauts placing American flag on moon's surface. The astronauts achieved a lot with the use of spacecrafts and spacesuits, but no one knows what happened behind the scenes. might have seen how the astronauts face difficulty without proper training. So, in other words, astronauts need to stay in shape in order to mitigate the deterioration of their bones, maintain the strength of their muscles and their heart, remain strong enough to do spacewalks, and to be able to carry out emergency procedures during the landing. Stay healthy and in shape until they return to Earth and to the gravity. Some have compared being in space for long periods to being in bed for months at a time. The body grows weak without moving around and without regular exercise. In role of physio, the goals are to prevent the deterioration of bones and other systems, maintain the strength of muscles, heart and other organs, remain strong enough to do regular spacewalk and task, stay healthy until they return to Earth and to gravity, designing equipments which work well in space shuttle and international space station to keep astronauts safe from the negative effects of space for long periods of time. So we have phases of astronaut training. A physiotherapist plays a key role in the multidisciplinary space agency team, and he is responsible for astronauts' health with a focus on the neuromusculoskeletal system. Many types of research studies validated the physiological changes and demonstrated how to prevent health problems and care for the astronauts before, during, and after the space flight. So, this includes pre flight training, in flight training, and post flight training. The pre flight training includes regular aerobic exercise workouts, cardiovascular and endurance, using the equipment such as treadmill, cycle ergometer, and exercise underwater, horizontal walking, resistance training, agility training. All these are used in this stage to improve the fitness of an astronaut.
Everyone's favorite, I think, learning how to use the spacesuit. We do that in the neutral buoyancy lab.
The
You're weighing over
astronauts are
400
made,
pounds when
the
you're in the
astronauts were
suit,
made
so every
to do the
movement, every
movements which
hand
is
movement is like
essential for
squeezing
them
an
to move in the
exercise.
space. So in the pre-flight training, adaptations to microgravity is achieved by ground level microgravity simulation. The five basic strategies that simulate microgravity environment are head down rest on bed with head down tilt of 3 to 12 degrees, water immersion wherein astronauts lie supine in water tank for up to 24 hours performing complex hand to eye coordination exercises and the tasks that mimic the skills required in spaceflight. Wheelchair confinement like paraplegics, which produces postural hypotension, immobilization and bed confinement similar to bedridden patient, and short parabolic flights to achieve brief periods of weightlessness. Here, the astronaut is made to sit in the chair and is made to orbit in different axes. So here the neurovestibular apparatus will adapt to the different changes and this helps in space travel. In in-flight phase, to stay healthy in space, astronauts are scheduled to exercise for 2.5 hours per day for 6 days for every week. Most, however, exercise all the 7 days per week. It includes both cardio and resistance exercise to keep their muscles and bones stronger. Counteracting the in-flight symptoms is also assisting the astronauts with their entire stay in space station with the help of carefully drafted exercise regime. The exercise regime mainly involves space gym. The exercising looks a bit different in microgravity. Exercise machines have been modified to stimulate a gravitational pull being exerted on the astronaut's body. So in in-flight phase, the equipments include space treadmill, stationary bike, and advanced resistive exercise device. So these three are the major equipments that are used in in-flight phase. In this treadmill, the type of exercise we are giving is cardiovascular, muscular, and skeletal exercise. The special feature of this treadmill is that the bungee and harness apply a load to the shoulders and hips based on the astronaut's body weight. At the start of the mission, the load is set at 60% of the astronaut's body weight. As you can see, the body harness holds the body, hip, and shoulders, and they maintains a stationary force towards the ground. So this keeps the astronaut stationary and makes him run on the treadmill. The second one is stationary bike. This the type of exercise is cardiovascular exercise, and the method of use is to place the feet on the clip pedals, put the back harness to remain secure to the machine, grasp the handholds to maintain balance on the machine, and then start pedaling. With holding the grab bars behind, the astronaut sets up the stationary bike and he starts pedaling. So with this he can counteract the floating and is able to do the exercise with proper resistance. And lastly, advanced resistive exercise device, which can be abbreviated as ARED. This device maintains muscle strength and bone density by targeting the major muscle groups. The special features of the device, it uses vacuum cylinders that exert up to 272 kilograms of resistance on a bar or cable. The device imitates free weights that used on Earth. So the method of use is to grasp the exercise bar firmly, adjust the resistance to the desired level, and perform heel lifts, squats, deadlifts, depending upon the muscles to be worked. So here, the astronaut is working on the ARED device. He can strengthen his hamstrings, quadriceps, shoulders, abdomens, biceps, triceps, and everything. On post-flight phase, the physical consequences of a prolonged journey in weightlessness are similar to those caused by osteoporosis, which affects elder people. However, these consequences aren't as serious because astronauts' bone density gradually returns to normal once they reach the Earth. Severe vertigo as their sense of balance readjusts and gravity sickness occurs. The landing phase is an immediate 0 to first day post landing called as phase 0. Orthostatic intolerance and vestibular dysfunction need to be treated in this phase. Phase 1 extends up to first 3 days from return. Physiological readaptation, rest, psychological support, readjustment of circadian rhythm, injury prevention, and diet and nutrition advices need to be addressed along with providing good family time. And phase 2 extends from day 7 to first 14 days from return. The stretching exercises, massaging are continued along with the introduction of progressive resistance exercises with use of resistive devices. Phase 3 lasts for 45 days from landing. Aerobic exercises, anaerobic activities along with proprioceptive and agility training is initiated at this phase to raise the reduced fitness quotient of the astronauts. Use of vibration platform can be used as it stimulates bone formation. And coming to research evidences, the scientist uses astronauts as subjects in their scientific experiments. This allows us to gain a better understanding of the effect of weightlessness and how to mitigate them for the purpose of future long duration space missions, but also for people with various health problems on Earth. The only way to minimize muscle atrophy in space is through intensive exercise, particularly strength training exercises combined with an adequate diet. The key researchers which describe the effect of physiotherapy on spaceflight were: I would personally suggest all the viewers to have a look on these studies to get a brief idea about the role of physiotherapy and their evidence in space. Principles of physiotherapy assessment, clinical reasoning, treatment program design, and progression of the program tailoring to individual needs are considered. Evaluation of the reconditioning program and challenges anticipated after long missions, example, the travel to Mars, are hypothesized. With technologies developing in leaps and bounds, effective countermeasure strategies like optimal exercise training are required to minimize the potential harmful deconditioning effects, and thus exercise training prescribed by a physical therapist is one of the essential components for rehabilitation of astronauts. Thank you.